So this happens to be Winsor Newton art masking fluid, which is what I use. It is basically a latex base that will dry on your watercolor paper to protect an area that you don't want to paint at the moment. It's great for doing little stamens or areas like on this tomato where we want to be able to paint this entire tomato in one gesture and not have to paint little tiny areas around this stem. It's much easier to mask off the stem and then let it dry and paint the tomato first. And once the tomato is finished, then you can take off the maskoid. They tell you on the bottle to shake this. I never shake it. I've found that what happens is that over time this stuff has a tendency to rise to the top. One of the reasons why I usually store it upside down like this, for some reason it doesn't separate as much. But what you want to do with this is first get the lid off, and then I'll show you how to use it. Alright, so you can see how this maskoid has, in the lid of this jar, kind of gotten a little gunky, right? It will also do that inside the jar if you haven't turned it upside down and it's been allowed to sit for a while. But basically all you have to do is take the back of a brush and scoop it out and then wipe it on a paper towel and throw it out. My recommendation to you is before you put the cap back on is that you get rid of all of this gunk on the inside. And you can just take some paper towel and wipe it out. You can also do that with the back of the brush. Just get rid of it and then wipe this out before you put the lid back on. It'll be easier to get the lid off the next time you have to use it. Okay, so we have our jar open, and you can either work with a brush, something small, because generally you're going to be doing this with small areas that need to be painted. Or you can use a pen. The pen nib on this is a 13EF. Now, in either case, you either need to load the pen or you need to load the brush. I have found that it really helps, first of all, to dilute this frisket a little bit, because it is a little too thick for general purposes, and it doesn't have to be quite so thick. And you want to have soap in your brush before you start. My recommendation is that try to keep a point on the brush. If this gets too small, you can use a pen, but just a little bit of water in the maskoid. And then the trick is to staying in the line. This is not an exact science. I have found that if I dilute the maskoid a little bit, it's a little easier to control. And some of these areas I'm going to do with a brush, and some of these areas I'm going to do with pen, because they're too small. So you really have to look at where you're applying this frisket, because, as I say, it's not always an exact science, and you really don't have to worry about those areas that are outside the tomato. And if you find that the brush is getting a little too thick, clean the brush, clean water, soap, clean the brush, clean water, a little more soap before you go back into the frisket. You can see I've got a point on the brush again. And the other way that you can do this is by using your pen. and loading the pen. And let's see if we can get this to mark. Yes, it's beautiful. So I'm just going to take the pen and these very point. But that happens, pick it up. And you may have to lift this whole thing and start over again. I'll have to wait for it to dry, clean the pen. This you just can wipe off with paper towel. Now the way that you get the mascoid off is you can use what's called a rubber cement pickup, or you can just use a piece of tape, like so. And I'm going to just pick up this one section here. That feels okay. Start again.